Over the course of the last few months, life in Cove has been very quiet. The snow's melted, but something's been plaguing me on my mind ever since that day I got lost in the woods during a blizzard. The man I saw, the mage dressed all in gray, sometimes I see him in my mind's eye, and I wonder if he was the man that's been watching me, the man I ran away from, the man I escaped Britain to get away from. More and more these days, I find myself wishing to leave, get on the road. I like the town Cove, but existential dread has been begging me to continue on. It's been a few months since the snows in Cove have melted. Warmer winds blew in from the north. Rain falls instead of snow. I've been thinking for some time, and apparently it was written all over my face, that I had to leave. I could tell myself anything I wished, but it was my nightmares that were compelling me forward. In truth, I was quite content here in Cove. A small, quiet, peaceful town. People seem at peace with nature here. It's beautiful. Before I left, I wanted to see what the large wooden tower in the mountains was. In winter, it was too slick, in my opinion, too dangerous. Should my boots slide out from under me, surely I would have fallen into the ocean. But maybe I was being overcautious. When I reached the top, there was a woman there. I had not seen much of her. In town once in a while. Helped pick fruit on occasion. I never paid her any mind. I was glad to see a well-stocked library for a change. I remembered the library in Britain being threadbare, barely a book to be found. However, her shelves seemed lined, stocked with knowledge. So I pored over a few volumes. Some of them I tried to take to heart. There was a book about alchemy. I didn't know much of potions. I had no idea how to brew them. I tried to make a mental note to avoid the green potions. I was happy to see a book by a man that I've come to respect, even though I've never really met him. Perhaps I'm even wrong about my opinion of him. Lord Blackthorn. Every time I read of the man, he's talking about how we should respect and treat the other races of this world kindly. I wonder why some people have a bad opinion of him. Maybe one day I'll get to meet him and find out why, or find out that these people are wrong. I asked her amongst her books if she had a spare map perhaps that I could use on my journeys. Overjoyed when she did. Looking at the map, I could make out the town of Britain, the mountain valley I went through, the desert I passed, and finally the shore I followed to get to Cove in the first place. I thanked her and left her there, to her vigil. I walked back to the house I'd been staying in and wondered what I could do. I had the fun idea of, as I walked back, I gathered a few things. Things to mix simple dyes when mixed with water. Perhaps I'll fill in this map with color to mark the places I've been to and the journey I've taken. Something that when if the map ever filled, I could look at and smile. That night, I stayed up a little longer than I probably should have, coloring in a swash of green here, a bit of brown there. The blue dyes were the hardest ones to really find. There wasn't much here of blue I could think of, though some flowers did the trick. Over the course of a candle, I don't know how long they burn, I took care in coloring in what I could to mark where I've been. I gazed at the map in awe. There was so much I have yet to see. The next morning, I left, waved goodbye to Lamar, asked for any news, anything noteworthy before I left. Another calm day in Cove, as peaceful as any other. Before leaving, I thought it might be a little lonely, traveling alone. And again, I tried to persuade an animal to join me on my journey. I thought a loyal hound at my side would keep good company. The hound disagreed. One day, I'm going to find out what makes these animals smile, what makes them tick. What's so distasteful about me? Maybe it's the way I smell. And with that, I left the town of Cove. Hopefully not for the last time. I hope to see it again someday. And while I had a map, I know full well how confusing the forest could be. I decided to play it safe and walk along the shoreline, following the mountains to get there. When I did, I found an erected gate, barred, stone, 2 stories high. It said "did not open." I couldn't imagine why, but it had nothing to do with me. So, I began my journey in earnest, marching through the woods, passing the time as I normally do otherwise, collecting herbs that I find scattered all in the land, useful for my magic. Magic that I still study intently, but have not quite caught in the hang of. I still fail beginner spells on occasion. When I got to a peninsula, I took a moment to jot down a new colored section, having visited it, before continuing on. After some time, my boots crunched fine sands, a beach nearby. And remarkably, a high number of black pearls washed up here, though I suppose it made sense to find it near water. And another camp, blue tan, cooking iron, a laid-out fisher's net. I assumed a fisherman had lived here, or at least made camp, but I could not find anything that could tell of his whereabouts, where he'd gone, who they were. I found a plate of food still sitting on the table, a well-slept-in cot. The food was still warm, and I wondered where everyone was. Did they see me and take off running? I found it hard to believe, There wasn't too many people that even knew who I was. Nothing else to do, I thought I'd pass the time trying to fish at the ocean. It was very calming staring out at that open blue sky. The waves gently lapping on the sands. My bobber splashing against the waves. My mind drifted, wondering what I could possibly do from this point. I still wanted to learn the bow, and perhaps when I've reached a new town I would do just that. I wanted to continue my journey as a healer, helping those that had fallen or gotten hurt. In my time in Cove, I didn't get much chance to apply bandages. A few bits and scrapes here and there, a missed axe from chopping a log, a small burn from a campfire, but nothing serious. All well within my medical knowledge, or my ability to cure with magic. After some time, I gave up on fishing. Either the fish in the ocean had not been near enough for me to catch, or they were smarter than the freshwater fish that I had caught before. Regardless, my line came up empty each time. With no other choice for a meal, I decided to pry some bark off a nearby tree. I would use this to start a campfire, add some rations to some water, and make a crude stew. Maybe not the best tasting of stews, but still filling and nutritious. While the fire burned and the cauldron boiled, I decided to apply my trade. One of my trades. Using the herbs I gathered in my work here, I decided to try some of the spells that have been giving me trouble, as well as brush up on the old ones I had pretty much mastered. After expending a handful of resources, casting spells, the smell of the stew could no longer be denied. It was basic, made up of dried fish, a few herbs I had plucked from the ground. Still, to a hungry man, very tempting. As I ate the stew in peace, again I wondered exactly where everyone was. I've been here for hours at this campsite. No one returned. No one visited. I didn't see another soul. Peaceful, I said to myself, but desolate. There was no one here. With little else to do, I decided to color in another portion of the map to mark my journey. Sometime later, about a day or so, I found another town. No part of me wishes I hadn't. There was no bustle. There were no people. The streets look like they haven't really been trafficked in weeks, if not months. The first building I found appeared to be a barracks, though I didn't see any guards. I assumed they had to be here, or unless some townsman decided to change out the candles every once in a while. In case they were to return, I suppose. The bookcases seemed to be lined with all sorts of material, but glancing at the binders, they weren't books. From what I could tell, just daily reports. After that, I tried to visit the inn. Again, it seemed quiet, almost cold. The woman there didn't even pay me any mind. I waved to her, but nothing. She just walked away. Once I followed her, I could understand why. The smell of strong spirits, alcohol, wafted through the air. I don't know who she was, but I believe she drank quite a bit. She gripped her head and told me to be quiet because her head hurt, and it seemed to go along with my suspicions. Her attitude seemed foul. She was bothered, annoyed. I couldn't imagine it was all entirely from me. I tried to ask her something, but she basically told me to go away. I left and walked across a bridge, heading east. Stopping dead in my tracks, I realized I had arrived to this town penniless. I had forgotten most of my belongings back in the bank of Cove, and I didn't feel like going back for them quite just yet. Continuing my exploration of the town, I've yet to still see a soul, and some dark dread in the back of my spine started to creep up. An art studio was completely devoid of any of the craftsmen that you would assume be associated with the crafts. Painters were not there. Gem cutters were gone. Smiths could not be found. I remarked at the beauty of it all, particularly the gems. They sparkled in the light of all the colors of the rainbow: blues, reds, amber. If I had to be honest, my favorite was probably the star sapphire. Though the armor I found was a close second. I couldn't imagine myself wearing it. It looked incredibly heavy. But how well protected I would be if I could. Later, I found Vesper Customs, and I assumed I would find plenty of people here, dealing with trade, merchants, bartering goods, but again, nothing. The only inhabitant appearing to be a dog. After the customs, I found a healer's building and was dismayed when I found people on the beds. Blood everywhere. The healer answered what few questions I could ask before I found myself leaving the building in search for the town crier. He had more pressing concerns: to keep his patients alive, and while I wanted to ask him more, to train me, his time was better spent elsewhere. I hailed the town crier, finding him near the bank. This town is under a curse, he told me, and it all made sense. The lack of traffic, buildings abandoned, people had ran away. Undead. That's what the protectors had nearly died from in the healer's building. Shock in my mind, I asked if there was a defense. He explained to me that the guards stayed mostly in the center of town and that a small defense force of citizens was helping. I nodded, equipped with my shield. My choice made. I'll join them.